All right, hello everyone. I'm going to show this video is for my product designers out there, and we're going to go over how to take your CAD file in Inventor, which is currently saved as an IPT, and get that ready for 3D printing. So I have here a file of my own. This is a model of my POE bar. And the first thing I'm going to want you to do, make sure we're going to set our material to chocolate here, just, for fun. Um, if you take your bar and to give it a nice glossy finish, we will change our material from the generic material to ABS plastic. Obviously, uh, we're just trying to mock the appearance of chocolate. If you select your bar like so and go to the appearance menu, you probably won't see chocolate in there right away. So we'll switch to the Autodesk appearance library, and then you'll have to open this back up. Now you have a bunch of different appearances, and you could, try to get perfect shade of brown, but there's a chocolate preset which you can select. And probably what you're going to notice, it's kind of behind my video down here. If you have a bunch of surfaces like I do, I have all these letters, these embossed letters. It's going to take about maybe 30 seconds to change your material over. You see my spinner here, so just let that run. Hopefully it doesn't crash your Inventor application. Always a good idea to save your file before you do something big like that. There we go. Now we've got a chocolate bar. It's a little bit harder to see since we have this dark coloring. You can change your visual style to make sure you're on shaded with edges. If you're just on shaded, it'll be even tougher to see. If you ever need to see it better, you could go into a wireframe model if you need to look at lines a little bit more clearly. But I'm going to go back to shaded with edges. All right, I'm going to go ahead and save my file before I continue working. So you are going to make a title block with your chocolate bar. I'm trusting you remember how to do that for my ED. If you need help, I am around to help you out. But we're going to use a different application to prepare this file for printing. Inventor creates IPT files, right? Inventor part files. We need to take our IPT and file export it into a standardized CAD format. So we're going to select File, Export, CAD format. And rather than saving it as a drawing file, you can see all these different options down here. We're going to select what's called an STL file. That stands for Standard Tessellation. You can see I have a couple STL files I've already created. These can be read by many different applications, not just Autodesk properties. So go ahead and export your file as an STL. I would recommend keeping it in the same folder where you have your IPT. I'm going to go ahead and click Save to do that. All right, now let's get out of Inventor. I'm just going to minimize that, and we're going to open up a new application called Ultimaker Cura. We call this just Cura usually. You can type in Cura because you probably won't see it. I like to actually keep that on my taskbar because I use Cura all the time when I'm printing stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and launch Cura. Your screen is going to look different from mine right now because I've opened Cura before, so I've kind of already got my printer set up, but I'll show you what you'll want to do. When you launch Cura, you're probably going to get a couple pop-ups about making an account, and you can kind of skip through that stuff. You do not have to make a Cura account. Eventually, you'll get to a screen that looks like this, where it says Add a Printer. If you are working at home, a lot of printers can be added to your Wi-Fi network. So, think about when you print a piece of paper, you could just select print. We're not able to do that on the school network, so we're going to click Add a non-networked printer. And Cura knows about all these different brands of 3D printers. You can see like probably over 100 different makers here. Our printers are made by Creality 3D. So you're going to scroll until you find that and select this arrow to open up the options. And here you see a bunch of different printers made by Creality. And our printers are Ender 3 Maxes. So go ahead and select Ender 3 Max and click Add. Now, what you'll find here are some basic printer settings, and I'll talk about what they mean a little bit. Here are your overall dimensions for the printer. So the printer bed that we're using has an X and Y dimension of 300 by 300 millimeters. That's about 1 foot by 1 foot, and it can go up to a Z-axis height of 340 millimeters. The build plate is a rectangular plate. It has a heated bed, meaning the bottom of the printer heats up to 60 degrees Celsius to keep the print from sliding. All this other stuff you should not really have to worry about. If you want to look at your extruder settings, This is essentially the diameter of the filament that goes into the printer. You don't need to change anything in here. In fact, don't change anything in here. It could screw up your print. Just go ahead and click next. And what you'll see once you do that is a model of your printer. So everything you want to print should fit in this box. This is the bed of the printer where it's going to lay it out. And this is showing you, this wireframe up here is showing you what sort of prints can fit in here. If you were to put something, that filled this box, it would probably take, like several days up to a week to print. 3D printing takes a lot of time. So let's get our file into the printer bed. So I'm going to go to File, Open, and I have in my K drive, POE folder, I have a Chocolate Factory folder, and here's that STL file I just made. Notice over here it says Standard Tessellation Language Files, STL. You will not see your IPT files here. They won't show up in this open dialog box because Cura can't read them. So you'll only see your STLs. So I'm going to double click my chocolate bar 3x3, and it's going to open it up inside Cura. I'm going to move myself here so I can see this slice button down here. Now, let's talk a little bit about what 3D printing actually is. The best way to think of it is Cura is an application that takes a 3D model and slices it into potentially hundreds of two-dimensional layers. So if we pulled in a model that was a cube, Cura would look at that and slice it into a bunch of squares and tell the printer, print me squares over and over and over and over again until I get a cube. Each layer of your 3D print has a height. So if you look at these quality settings up here, the first thing you're going to select is your resolution. This is essentially the height of each layer. The smaller the height, like 0.12 millimeters, the more detail you can get out of your layer. However, that's going to come at the cost of printing time. Low quality, so this is more than double the height of your super quality prints, 0.28 millimeters, so you're only getting about 3 layers per millimeter. If you have a very simple shape like a cube, you could do this because there's no curvature. The more curvature you have, the more quality you need to get smooth curves. I would recommend starting at the standard quality and seeing what your print time is. Another thing to talk about is called infill. So I'm going to slice this up really quick, and you can do the same thing. And what you'll see here is my bar has a print time of 3 hours exactly. Yours may be less or more. If you look at the preview tab, you'll actually see what the printer is going to print. It's difficult to actually see inside the bar, but 3D printers do not simply print a solid shape. Like, they're not going to fill this up with plastic. That would be extremely wasteful. So if we look at like an X-ray view, I'm trying to think if this will allow us to see a little bit. Yeah, not too much. You'll be able to see it when you actually print. But essentially, once we print the first, like the bottom layer, the printer is going to kind of do a zigzag pattern on the inside. So there's going to be a lot of actually air and empty space inside your print. You won't be able to see that because the outside will be filled in, but that saves you a lot of time on your print. And that is related to your infill. So you notice if I go to 100% infill, all right, that means I want every single, let me go back to the Prepare tab. I want every single cubic inch filled with plastic, and I slice it, my printing time is going to almost double. And that's completely unnecessary. 20% infill is often as high as you'd want to go. And if you have a pretty simple shape, you might even be able to get away with 10% infill. And you notice now my printing time has decreased by about 15 minutes. That may not sound substantial, but remember, you might have to print between 4 and 8 copies of your bar. So like if I had multiple bars here and I decreased to 10% infill, I might shave off 1 to 2 hours depending on the side. This is about all you need to worry about in terms of settings for your 3D print. Support will allow you, if you have any overhangs, but since we're making bars with a flat surface, we shouldn't need to worry about that. And adhesion, you shouldn't need to worry about either. If you're familiar with 3D printing, there are a lot more settings inside the custom tab you could mess around with. I wouldn't recommend that unless we're having issues with your print, and then you and I can tinker around with some of those. Let's go over the how to orient yourself in Cura really quickly. If you hold down the scroll bar, like how you pan in Inventor, you get a similar behavior. If you want to orbit, you have to click the right mouse button and hold that down. If you want to move your bar, you're selected on the Move tool over here. I would keep your bar in the center of the bed unless you are printing multiple bars. If you want to scale your bar, you could do that here. Like I can shrink it down. Now, I can make the bar gigantic. I wouldn't do that because now all of a sudden the dimensions you set in Autodesk Inventor are no longer accurate. So I'll just Control Z that to go back to 100%. If your bar was imported into Inventor like this, which may happen, or sorry, imported into Cura, all right, you can use the orbiting tools to flatten the bar out on its flat side. Okay, so let's get this bar ready for the printer. We are going to select the slice button once we have all our settings correctly. And you know what? I'm going to go to, I think, sometimes I like a 15% infill. So I'm going to go over to custom and I'm going to select 15 for my infill density. I'm going to slice that. So I get a kind of a happy medium between 10 and 20. You notice it only saves me a couple minutes, but I don't think 20 is necessary for my shape. Now, you're going to want to save this. And yours should say save to disk, and you can save this into your K drive. The better thing to do is to go get the SD card from the printer itself, and I can show you where that is, and save it directly to the removable disk. But until you're ready to print, I would just save it to your computer. So I'll go ahead and select save to disk, and come in here to my K drive. I have a 3D prints folder. You could also keep this inside your whatever folder you're using for all your Chocolate Factory stuff. You notice that Cura is going to create what's called a G-code file for your print. So it goes from IPT to STL to G-code. A G-code, let's actually look at one. They're kind of interesting to look at. If I try to open this up, it's going to say, what the heck do you want to use to look at this? Let's see if I can get it some way. I actually don't think I can even open it. Well, anyways, inside a G-code file is literally just like thousands and thousands of coordinates telling the extruder on the printer where to go. And yeah, so you can't really interpret it as a human. It's only for the printer. So anyways, I'm going to end this video here, and in the next video, I'm going to talk about how to actually print your file on the printer. So I'll stop this video here.